Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I do appreciate you being with me. I want to get right into our video this morning. We are looking at, and we are concluding our study of the marriage motif, the wedding motif, in Matthew 25, 1-13, in our ongoing series on the Olivet Discourse. You'll have to excuse me for this, but just this morning, I was on Facebook, and one of my detractors, he gave the number of videos that I have on the Olivet Discourse so far, and he just posted it and said LOL, and what he means by that, it's, in his opinion, is just ridiculous that I have made over 400 videos on the Olivet Discourse. Now, I have to tell you, this fella has exhibited about as much understanding of the Olivet Discourse that it would probably challenge him to do 15 or 20 videos on the Olivet Discourse. And I'm not trying to be unkind. I'm just simply illustrating and simply saying that based upon his comments, based upon the depth of his supposed understanding of the Olivet Discourse, that, yeah, it would probably challenge him pretty badly for him to even try to produce 15 or 20 videos, much less 420. And here we are at 422 or 23 as of today. And we're not done yet, okay? But it just illustrates how truly petty a lot of the objections against covenant eschatology are. They are based upon a purely superficial understanding of Scripture. There is no consideration of the relationship between the fulfillment of God's Old Covenant promises in the New Testament and the Old Testament promises themselves. Matter of fact, this particular individual believes that God was through with Israel at the cross. He believes the law and the prophets passed away at the cross. And so when you pose the question, if God was through with Israel at the cross, if God was through with the Old Covenant at the cross, then why is it that all New Testament eschatology is based on, taken from, and in anticipation of the fulfillment of God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel? I mean, after all, folks, if a covenant is invalid, if it's been abrogated, then guess what? Its promises are no longer valid. Hello? Sorry, this is just the way it is. Okay, so over the last couple of videos, I have shared with you this marvelous motif of Matthew 25, 1-13, being fulfilled manifestly in Revelation 21, in which John said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and earth had fled away because there was no place found in them. And I saw a new Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven, adorned as a bride, adorned for her husband. And heard a great voice saying, the tabernacle of God is with man. And I've shared with you that this is Hosea chapter 5 and 6. I mean, it's just got it stamped all over it. You can't divorce, pun intended, Revelation 21 from Hosea or from Ezekiel 37 or from Zechariah or, on and on. So, but someone, and by the way, clearly this was to be fulfilled in the first century. How many times was John told at the beginning of Revelation, in the middle of Revelation, at the end of Revelation, these things must shortly come to pass? And yet we're supposed to believe we're still waiting on them, even though that was said 2,000 years ago. That's utterly ridiculous. It is, in the truest sense, an argumentum ad desperatum, an argument from desperation. Okay. And yet we're told, now look, Preston, I know that John said, or was told, and that John said, I know that Jesus said, these things must shortly come to pass. And I know that was 2,000 years ago, but look, just look around you. Revelation 21, verse 4 says that at the arrival of this new Jerusalem, at the time of the wedding, that you keep talking about for 400 plus videos, it says, God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. So, Preston, listen. If Matthew 25, 1 to 13 has been fulfilled as you claim, and if Revelation 21, verse 4 has been fulfilled as you claim, you better open your eyes, Preston. In my formal public debate with Joel McDermott in 2012 here in Ardmore, he appealed to this very thing. And the essential argument was, God said, okay, in the New Jerusalem, in the new creation, there are no more tears, there's no more pain, there's no more death. Well, I pointed out, first of all, that Mr. McDermott was on record of saying that Revelation 21:4 is fulfilled in AD 70. And oh, by the way, don't forget, Kenneth Gentry is on record of saying that Revelation 21, 1 following, was fulfilled in AD 70. So, it's not just the, quote, full preterist, unquote, that affirm that this is fulfilled. But again, the argument is, look around you. Look at all the pain. Look at all the suffering. Look what's going on in America, for crying out loud. We've never seen a situation quite this bad for 200 years now. Well, you go back to the days of the Civil War. And yes, there was civil unrest in the 60s and 70s. But boy, what's taking place in America right now, with the nonsense that is taking place, the open anarchy of group after group after group that has one goal in mind, and that's to destroy America. They are not patriots. They do not love America. They want to destroy America. And look at all the pain and look at all the suffering that they have caused. Look at Portland, Oregon, for crying out loud. How many wonderful families have been wiped out financially and have shed tears? How many people have been killed? I'll get off my soapbox here directly. But anyway, the point being, people point to all of this turmoil and all of this distress, and they say, look, Preston, the Lord said in Revelation 21 and verse 4 that when the New Jerusalem came, when the new heaven and new earth arrived, there wasn't going to be any more of this pain and sorrow and suffering. I really honestly believe that one of the greatest disservices to biblical eschatology, to the study of biblical eschatology, is the idea that I was raised with, that I believed in, that I taught, until I looked closer, what is that this is to be taken literally, and that since we still see tears today, since we still see sorrow, and we still see pain, then most obviously, the wedding hasn't taken place. Matthew 25, 1 to 13 is not fulfilled. Well, I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, and this goes back to a point that I have driven home time after time after time. Point number one, Revelation is not a book about rigidly literalistic events. I mean, after all, it's not a literal physical wedding, is it? It's a metaphor for a new covenant relationship. And it's not a literal physical New Jerusalem in spite of what our dispensational friends say. Because after all, there's no literal physical temple there. And it's not a literal physical new heaven and new earth in spite of what our premillennial, or excuse me, postmillennial friends and the reformed amillennial friends say. Sorry. We've dispelled that quite easily before. So, I'm out of time for today. But here's what I want you to do. Okay? Here's your homework for tomorrow and perhaps Wednesday as well. Get out your trusty, rusty, Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, if you still have one, or go to BibleGateway.com on the Word Study. Go to the book of Isaiah and just look up tears or sorrow or crying. Just look them up. And then go to those passages in the book of Isaiah and read the context. Now, here's what you're going to find. Some of those passages have to do with specifically very pointed historical situations in the time of Isaiah and Hosea, obviously. Secondly, they have to do with messianic prophecies such as, Revelation 21. In those historical texts dealing with the events and the time of Isaiah and Hosea, read those descriptions carefully and to see if that language is to be taken literally. All right? So, out of time for today. Now, if you want to see a discussion that has been called one of the most fantastic books on the nature of the coming of the Lord, the nature of the new creation, it has been used in at least one college course that I'm aware of. My book, Like Father, Like Son, on Clouds of Glory. Now, this is not part of our monthly special this month. We're going to do that next month, okay, in May. But if you go to my website, DonKPreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, and if you order the book, Like Father, Like Son, on Clouds of Glory, and you send me a note saying you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, I'll refund your shipping. That'll save you $5. Listen, folks, in this book, I use the Old Testament correlated with the New Testament, and vice versa, to demonstrate that Christ's parousia, as we demonstrated yesterday from Hosea 5 and 6 and Revelation 21, was never supposed to be a literal, visible, bodily return. I have more to say about that on tomorrow's video, as well as a discussion of no tears, no sorrow, no death. You don't want to miss it. So I'll see you on the flip side.